Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I am super excited, honored today to have Michael Walsh, founder and CEO of Cariloop, today on the show. Michael, welcome. How you doing?
Thanks. Thanks for having me, man. Good
Oh,
to
yeah,
see you.
my pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah, well, super excited. I always used to start out with origin story, so maybe we'll kick it off with that. We talked a little bit before we hopped on air here, but yeah, maybe kind of share your story and how you came to start and grow this very interesting company.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. It's been a wild ride as I think about it. In fact, like really just even these last couple of weeks, like spending some time with family and just even rehashing some of the journey. It's just wild to think about what the last 15, 16 years of my life have brought and how lucky and fortunate I am to be in the position that I get to wake up every day and help people go through the same things that we went through. So yeah, the story for me, it actually goes back to I'm sitting in my home office in Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas, but originally from the southwest suburbs of Chicago. Oldest of five. It's me, and I've got four younger sisters.
Oh,
And
wow.
the age gap, yeah, man, like incredible childhood growing up, lot of activity in our house, but the age gap between me and my youngest sister is about 11 years. And so I went to Purdue University for school. I studied business, finance, economics, started my career in the management consulting space, working for a big global consulting firm. And I was starting my career right around the time of the great financial crisis in '07, '08, '09.
Uh-huh.
So what happened around this time, it's just absolutely transformed my life and career journey as I know it and put me on this path. So start at my firm, Protiviti, owned by Robert Half International in 2007. Do a bunch of consulting and risk and compliance work for this firm. End up taking an interest in some of the healthcare work that the firm was doing and expressing my interest in that work in my first annual review, which would have been in 2008, right before the financial crisis hit. So a couple of things happened in this 12-month period that are important. So the financial crisis is sort of upon us. We're seeing massive global layoffs across the board, my firm included. And I'll never forget sitting down with my managing director on that sort of Monday after a massive rift took place on Friday and thinking that I was probably next. And in fact, no, it was that because I had expressed interest in healthcare, I was going to be working on healthcare clients now. And, they had let some of the folks go. They needed some help. And so would I be interested in stepping into this role? Of course.
Yeah.
So this happens, and right around the same time, then I get the news that my grandfather on my mom's side of the family had a really challenging medical condition. He had a brain aneurysm that ended
Oh,
up
boy.
causing a bunch of issues with his heart and his lungs and kidneys and his liver, and just really tough situation. He was in really bad shape. So while I'm shifting into this healthcare role within the firm, and by the way, I'm expected to be north of 110, 120% chargeable, which in the consulting world basically means that
Yes.
I'm billing out, 50, 60 hours a week,
Yeah.
no time on the bench or what my role could be in jeopardy. So while I'm doing all of this and swimming as hard as I can with, my career, my mom, my dad, my family were scrambling to help out my grandparents, which
Mm.
they're 2 states away. And so it was during this time period that, my mom is having to be in Michigan. My dad, also an entrepreneur, like working on our family business, working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks to support the family, is needing to be at his post. And so I've still got three sisters at home in grade school.
Oh, wow.
And so this was my introduction into like what people go through when you find out a member of your family is not doing well and how everybody has to rally and just the disruption it can cause in terms of, your own physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual well-being. So for about 2 years there, Kip, I was helping as best I could to be mom and dad at home with my sisters and help out there. I'm trying to manage my career. I've got relationships, friendships. I'm 23 years old at this point. I'm just
Jeez.
starting my life, and
Yeah.
so it was just a lot. It was heavy, and My co-founder in all this was one of my best friends in the world. We grew up together. He went through the same thing with his family, like just before I did. And so like, that's how all this started. It was just a really kind of stressful, chaotic, turbulent time in my life. And what I learned from it was, man, when they find this news out, like it's hard enough to be a patient in the United States healthcare system and navigate for your own health. Like,
Right.
man, is it hard to do it for somebody else when
Mm,
you don't know their conditions, you don't know their medications, you don't know their insurance, you don't know the situation. Like, and we're not talking about strangers here. These are your family members. Like you'd
yeah.
think you should know, but you don't. And trying to navigate through that is it's really challenging. And the ripple effects that it can cause for the family who are trying to rally and be there for you, it's very real. So this is what inspired my co-founder and I to like, go do something about it, you know? So we started a company back in 2012 called Cariloop. Company is completely focused and mission driven around solving this issue for the stress and the anxiety that family caregivers take on and feel as they navigate these really kind of crazy, tumultuous journeys with their loved ones. So, like I said, Kip, yeah, super just blessed to get up every day and do this and feel like I can make an impact on families going through the same things that we did.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. How we kind of talk about just kind of starting the business and how have you scaled and grown and how have things evolved over these last, I don't know, 12 years or so?
Yeah, so it's been like I said, a journey. Like, you know, my co-founder and I, we were a couple of punk 20-something-year-olds, you know, when we started the business, had really no idea like really what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it. Like we had to really learn going to the school of hard knocks and just kind of figure it out and make some mistakes along the way. Had incredible mentors and supporters, and you know, certainly our family members were very involved in all this, given what we had both just gone through. But when we started the company, it was actually an entirely different idea, product, business model, strategy. I mean, everything. It was going down a totally different path than what it is today. But it was because of that path, and I'm sure you hear this story often from folks that come on and the people
Uh-huh.
that you meet, like it's that ability to pivot and really
Yes.
execute, you know, in a different direction is really what can make all the difference in you having success and scaling. So the original idea for Cariloop was actually to build more of an open table type of platform where long-term care facilities and each of our communities, so think nursing homes, assisted living facilities, memory care communities, during that moment where you and your loved one, a parent, a grandparent, a spouse, are discharging from a hospital and you're looking for nearby facilities and resources that could sort of be that next stop in care, the experience as we saw it, as we experienced it for ourselves, was, you know, the hospitals, they're inundated with caseloads and volume. They just don't have time to help you with that next step.
Uh,
And a lot of this was what was the crux and inspiration for the Affordable Care Act that came
mm,
out later. Like the hospitals end up handing you, Kip, a bunch of pamphlets and lists and just say, like, here you go. Like this is kind of these are the places nearby. Like, good luck. Let us
uh-huh.
know if you need anything. And really what they're saying is you're probably not going to get us back on the phone, which can be super scary to any, you know, family walking out the door.
Absolutely.
So the idea was if we could put together a platform where all of these facilities and resource providers could put their inventory and availability into a platform where instead of the hospital saying, here's a list, it's here's an actual platform you can go to where you can see what's open
Okay.
and like reserve your spot and at least give yourself enough time to go over there and check it out and see if it's what you want. Like that was the original idea for this. And what we learned early on was that most folks then that were going on to use that platform, they were coming on to check things out primarily Monday through Thursday between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Okay. Huh.
And so, I mean, you think about where most Americans are between
Yeah.
10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday, that they're usually at work, right?
Right.
This is all, of course, pre-pandemic. Most folks are in an office, like sitting at a desk in a cubicle on their company computer or laptop, like on our platform looking for facilities for a loved one. And so it was this aha moment that really fundamentally changed the way we thought about solving the problem. And it was like, well, if most of these folks are at work, it begs to reason that their employers must be doing something to help them, right? Like,
Huh.
it's clearly like if they're paying their folks to be at their desk doing their work, and we caught you with your hand in the cookie jar. Like we know you're
Right.
here. We know you're
Yeah.
solving this
Yeah.
problem at home. So how is the employer like supporting you, and how can we maybe help the employer to support you? So in 2016, 2017 now, after what, 4 or 5 years after we had started the company, like we moved away from that original model and started focusing on how can we support our nation's companies, nonprofits, and all different types of organizations who have people they care for and have a vested interest in their people showing up and being the best versions of themselves. How can we help them to achieve that by offering a platform that would be the first of its kind in terms of the benefits and well-being programs that they offer? It'd be the first that wasn't focused on the employee as the patient,
Sure.
but
Sure.
the employee as the caregiver or the parent of
Mm.
the patient or the loved one. So completely changed the business model, the product, the go-to-market strategy, the pricing, the people that were working here. I mean, we changed it all. And had raised some capital, like some angel investor capital and seed capital to start the business when we first started it. Went back to our investors and even had a few new folks join us when we made this pivot, and just started building brick by brick, company by company, employee by employee, and
Huh.
um, literally trying to save the world just one caregiver and family at a time. And there's so much more to the story, but like that's what kind of got us on this path. And like I said, it's just been a wild journey ever since. I mean, so now you fast forward to 2024, post-pandemic, where I would tell you between the months of July of 2020 and really July 2024, this category has just exploded. And I think that a lot of the pre-work that we had done, in those early days of starting the company and really getting out with this message, I think it had a lot to do with the entire category really growing and expanding at the rate that it has. So really proud of the work that's been done and the impact that we're having. And I'm sure we can get some more into this, but yeah, like we primarily are working with employers, and we're supporting, some of our nation's largest companies to help their people show up every day and be the best versions of themselves.
Wow. So is it like a benefit that the employer offers employees? Is that kind of how it's set up?
Exactly right. So you're seeing companies sort of package this in with a lot of the mental and emotional well-being products that they're offering to their employees. So you've seen this like really big boom in corporate America around offering products like, Headspace, if you're familiar with
Right.
that company,
Uh-huh.
or Lyra or Spring Health, like companies that are able to pair you up with either the content, the self-help tools and guidance, or potentially even a counselor or a therapist to help you with a lot of the mental and emotional challenges and complexities that you're dealing with in your own life. What we would tell you is that one of the most complex situations you go through that causes mental and emotional strain is you're worried sick about a loved one, a parent, grandparent, in-law, a child, a spouse, a friend, a neighbor, a domestic partner, somebody. Um, you think about your own life, Kip, like, and the people around you, like,
Uh-huh.
would you know what to do and how to do it if something happened to your son, who you
Right.
told me pre-show is down here in Dallas? Like,
Yeah.
would you know what to do if something happened with one of your parents or your grandparents? It's scary.
Yeah.
So yeah, to be able to package yourself in kind of that mental health category and be a solution for employees that are navigating one of the scariest things they could ever go through, and help them continue to be present and climb the ladder in their career. Yeah, it's game changing for the company and for the employee.
Yeah. Yeah. And like when we were talking before the show, I mean, I shared, that I've been pretty blessed in my life that just kind of immediate family and parents, everyone's super healthy. And I know you said that's a rarity, but as you were talking, I started really thinking about my dad, and he, so his dad, my grandfather died when he was 82. But my grandmother, from that point on, my dad really helped her a ton, and she lived to be almost 100. And then his sister, her husband died a few years back, and she had some issues too. So he's traveling back and forth between Minnesota, where we live, in Iowa, which is where my grandmother and my aunt were. And so what your story really resonates with kind of what he has done and dealt with. And I mean, he had his own, he's a lawyer, had his own practice. So he had the flexibility to make that happen and didn't have to like deal with an employer. But a lot of time going back and forth, 5 hours one way physically driving down there, and tons of time on the phone and dealing with all these things for both of those people for many, many, many years. Um, and I mean, I can see, I mean, that was really draining for him. Um, yeah, I
We
mean,
we
it's profound. And again, I've been super blessed. I've not personally had to do that, but I've watched my dad do that for many, many, many years.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet again, just you and I were sharing statistics pre-show that if you think about some of your closest friends and the people in your life and maybe what they've had to go through and experience with people in their orbit, it's amazing, Kip, how when I share with people what we do, even if in the first gut reaction it's, oh, well, thank God I haven't had to go through this yet. You start to talk about like really truly what happens to people and the various things that happen around them. And suddenly they're like, oh yeah, like this did happen. And I have had a friend go through a really tough mental health situation that I had to be there for them. I have had a close relative be in a car accident and spend 3 months in rehab and home
Mm.
health. Like suddenly you start thinking about it, and you're like, wow, I actually have spent a lot of my time like just checking on the people that I care about and making sure that I'm showing up and being present for them. And you're right, the hours start to add up in your head as
Huh.
far as like what you actually are doing. And this is the exact value proposition we're sharing back
Right.
to the employer is, man, your top people that you really can't afford to see walk out the door and leave the workforce because they have to go full time and do this. Like you should have a vested interest. You should care about them being able to get the help, the support, the guidance that they need so that, not only are they able to be there for their family in the best possible way, but they get to do that knowing and feeling that you are there for them as well. Like, and you think of the brand affinity and loyalty and
Uh-huh.
just like what that does for you in terms of mapping your own career and your trajectory of your life out. Like there's a lot of companies out there that I would tell you, Kip, like are admittedly a bit behind the curve on this. And I'm sure you and your son chat about this as well. I know you mentioned to him he wants to, be an entrepreneur and, get out there and build something. Like our nation's young people have a true difference of opinion and perspective on the way that they want to spend their time in their life and the causes that they want to be a part of and the organizations that they want to feel like they share core values and an ethos around. And for those organizations that don't get that and aren't adapting themselves to that, I think like they're going to be in trouble over the next decade or so if they can't adapt.
Yeah.
Uh, but thankfully, we've seen on the flip side a lot of organizations, especially the last 4 or 5 years, really grab a hold of this and pave the way and trailblaze forward, making sure that everybody out there knows from entry level all the way through their executive team that they are a company and a brand that cares a lot about them and their family. And this is sort of how you put your money where your mouth is. Like
Yeah.
we're going to provide the tools, the guidance, the culture for you to be able to go through this and feel supported versus feeling alienated and left alone.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's so powerful for brand. And like in our business, in my business, I mean, I've seen companies that do this very well and some that do it horribly, but we've dealt with tons of candidates on, executive searches we're working on that throughout the search process. I mean, that either that's part of it. They share that, I'm caring for my mother or father or a family member or something. We just had one recently where when we were down to the finish line for this gentleman to start, I mean, top 2% in the country in what he does. And his brother got diagnosed with a horrible, super aggressive cancer, like right as we're getting to the finish line for him to accept an offer. And then he ultimately accepted it, but just needed a little bit of time to before he would start to go and care for his brother down in Arizona. And within a week, his brother was gone. I mean, it just happened so fast. Um, and then, he needed a little more time to deal with that. And then ultimately, I mean, happy ending on on the job side, he accepted the job and it started and it went well. He actually started last week, but like there's so much of that happening, and we see it all the time. So I can totally see the value of your business and employers offering that as a benefit. I mean, that's huge.
You think of the story that I know you are sort of sitting right in between these two parties watching this conversation take place, and you think of
Hmm.
how impactful it would be to that individual who's dealing with that with his family member to hear from his future employer
Huh.
that we've got programs, protocols, and really truly like an ethos of caring for, and we even showing up for you before you even take this, like you think of
Right.
what that means and how valuable that can be to the employer to operate this way, to bring aboard a top talent like this. And for the investment of just being a good human and
Right.
offering something that could really, you know, change the way that all this works. The stories, Kip, that we hear, I mean, there's a
Huh.
never-ending just
Yeah.
flow and inundation of these, like what this has meant. The sad part of that is there's also a steady flow of the stories of where was this when, which is
Mm.
always like it gets to
Ugh.
you. Like you feel like you missed the chance to be there for someone that went through something real similar and is able to articulate how painful this was without something like Cariloop. Um, so that's what we're working hard every day to avoid is like we want like the purpose statement behind the company, the why behind the company is that we believe no one should ever have to go through caregiving alone. Like that's what we're
Ugh.
trying to solve is just
Yes.
not feel like you're on an island by yourself trying to solve this because oftentimes that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Well, maybe chat a little bit about culture, core values. 'Cause I mean, I think this, I mean, by companies having this, I mean, it speaks volumes to their culture and the core values that they hold. But how within your organization, how do you guys think about culture or core values? Or maybe a secondary question after that is when you're talking to prospects for your business, how do you talk about, how this your offering could enhance their culture or play into their core values?
It's one of my favorite things to talk about and something I'm um, perhaps most passionate about is and let me, before I even say that, let me back up. Like
Sure.
for 12 years now, I've been saying to our team that if we're going to be successful in going out there and working with some of our country and world's top employers and really playing a critical role in their ecosystem and in their culture, we cannot go and stand in front of them and preach to them about needing something like this and doing these things if we are not doing these things 2, 3x as well here at
Mm.
home at Cariloop. Like that won't sit well with me ever. Like going
Right.
out there and selling something that we aren't, also eating our own dog food back at home. And so we committed to this years and years ago, like even before we got into the employer space, was that we've got to work really hard every day. And we were by no means perfect, but really with intent every day to create a culture and a framework by which we can truly feel like we're working together and supporting one another. Because to us, that's the example we want to set in how we build our product, our services, our capabilities, and deliver them to those same families that oftentimes are feeling fragmented and all over
Mm.
the place. Like, so I say all that as like sort of the philosophy. One of the things that makes Cariloop really special and different from a lot of organizations that are out there. Are you familiar with what a public benefit corporation or a certified B Corp are?
Yes, but not deeply. So go for it. I mean, I know I've heard of it a little bit, but
These are um, a public benefit corporation is a form of a for-profit entity that essentially takes shareholder, excuse me, it takes capitalism to sort of another level beyond just shareholder capitalism. It actually promotes it to a level where you're concerned with stakeholder capitalism. So it's not just about having a for-profit corporation that is only focused on generating shareholder returns. It actually focuses on how do you maximize stakeholder returns. And so
mm,
who are Cariloop stakeholders? These are our customers. These are the families that we support. These are our employees that work for Cariloop. of course, our shareholders and investors, but also we're a remote slash hybrid workforce at
Uh-huh.
Cariloop. Like, so all the communities and all the cities that we all live in and, contribute to, like, how can Cariloop play a role in contributing? The more we grow to each of these communities and supporting the things that they're doing locally to help parents, families, caregivers that are, living there. So in 2021, we converted Cariloop from a Delaware C corporation, a very traditional for-profit entity
Mm-hmm.
legally, to a Delaware public benefit corporation. And what that entailed was rewriting our articles of incorporation with the state of Delaware to assert that we will not only use our business platform to generate really meaningful, significant shareholder returns, but we will strive to also create a lot of returns for all these other groups that we serve and support.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of this, if you're familiar with brands like Tom Shoes or
Uh-huh.
Bombas Socks or Patagonia, like these are all public benefit corporations.
Okay.
And so they've built it into their business model that the more they grow, the more they're giving back. And it's just part of the rhythm of how they do business.
Huh.
So this is exactly how we operate. So we actually donate a fair amount of cash to nonprofits and associations and organizations all across the country that are supporting families and caregivers and parents. We donate a lot of service from our platform. Like, so for those individuals that don't have access to Cariloop through their employer, but are potentially in an underserved and undersupported geo community or situation that they need help, if they come to us and we see that they could use support, we often donate the service to them for
Huh.
free just to be able to help. And then lastly, Kip, all of our employees, we carve out 1% of their paid time every year, which is essentially 21 hours if you assume a 2,080-hour work year.
Mm-hmm.
21 hours of paid time to go volunteer in their community for some type of cause, nonprofit, or even civic group, or something like that they're associated with. It could be your kid's school, volunteering to do field trips. It could be
Mm-hmm.
the PTA. It could be a animal shelter, a hospital, like a food bank, but paid time to go support your community. So that's the PBC side of this. And then the certified B Corp piece is we actually had a third party come in 2021 and 2022. The organization is called B Lab. And they audit our entire business from the practices and processes we use to run every day, our benefits, our culture, our tools and technology, our hybrid or remote workforce, and
Huh.
its effect on the environment and our
No
carbon
way.
footprint. Like, so they're looking at all the pieces of the business and how it runs to see, is this a business that truly is operating and maximizing itself to do good for the world? And so we got this certification now, it's about 2 years ago. So it goes back to what you asked me, like, we can't go out there and tell companies about how they can take great care of their people if we're not doing everything we possibly can to structure ourselves and operate in a way that we're doing it 2 or 3x as well. So that's just really important to me. And anytime I'm ever invited to come and speak with a prospective customer, I typically open with this and talk about who we are and what we stand for. And you find out pretty quickly if they resonate with that message and
Yeah,
if
I'm
they want to
sure.
really understand it.
Yeah.
If folks' eyes glaze over and they're like, this isn't for me, like you tend to know, like this might not be the best partner.
Yeah.
And we've seen that before, like, and we totally understand it. We recognize this might not be for everybody, but it means a lot to us. And it means a lot to the people that come to work at Cariloop that this is how we think about it.
Yeah. Boy. I mean, listening to you, I mean, I think servant leadership is probably your philosophy based on your values. So maybe talk a little about how servant leadership has played into fostering your culture and growing the business.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the service business, right? I mean, everything we do, everything about who we are is about helping, our communities and the society that we operate in. So to be able to demonstrate even just a little bit every day, starting from me and, through our management team, our leadership team, and really permeating throughout the company, it's always got to feel like I am here to support and help the folks that directly report to me. Like my job is actually to help them, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, everybody has job responsibilities and a role to play in our success. And we've got objectives and goals and targets to go hit and growth to achieve and milestones to go and surpass. But it's got to start with feeling like I am actually here in service and support of each of them. And I work really hard at that, Kip, every single day, every single week to make sure that's how the team feels. And my hope is that they're passing that to their teams and all the way through. So yeah, like that's a huge part of my week is really just carved out for time with our team, time with our customers, our partners, like all of our stakeholders that I mentioned before, like really feeling like in order for me and us to maximize stakeholder value, I've got to make deposits in a lot of these areas every single week, every single month, every single quarter. So yeah, I certainly, that's how I try to show up every day.
Uh-huh.
I'm a work in progress. I'm not by any means perfect, but I work hard at it. And I love what I get to do every day to work with this group to chase after this mission.
Yeah, I can feel it. There's no question about that. How has your personal definition of leadership evolved maybe over these last 12 years since you started the company till now?
Yeah, I probably don't reflect on that enough, to be honest. I tend to be so looking ahead and looking out versus, spending a lot of time looking at even my personal journey, looking back. I think what's changed the most for me, especially the last couple of years, is the realization that I can't do it alone. And I need to surround myself with really incredible people that I can be in a spot to serve and support the way I just described. And I've always had that. But I think in early days of Cariloop as a founder, you feel this responsibility to constantly roll up your sleeves and sort of get in there and rumble with the team and go and make
Mhm.
things happen. And the realization I had 2, 3 years ago as we were really starting to grow was in order for us to scale, like I actually have to get my hands out and
Uh-huh.
I've got to
Right.
be able to bring in a team that not only are a set of like amazing individual contributors and performers, but really truly they can work well together and they can not only push themselves, but they can then push each other and the team that they're building to really take ownership, responsibility, and feel empowered to go build and grow and chase after this mission and vision that me and my co-founders set out to achieve. So I think for me, like that lesson of like actually, in order for us to do more, I have to do less.
Hmm.
That was a big lesson for me over these last couple of years. And same, still a work in progress. I still have my days where I can't help myself. I want to just jump in there and roll up my sleeves and help.
Uh-huh.
But the realization that sometimes the best way to help is to coach, to guide, to support, to empower, to encourage, to inspire. That's so much more meaningful, and ultimately it's going to generate better results and performance than me jumping in there myself and trying to do it.
Hmm.
So I think that's been a big lesson these last couple of years, and I wouldn't trade some of the pain and some of the strife that I had to experience to learn that lesson. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
Look at where we are today and the excitement I have about where we're going in the years ahead. And there's no way we'd be on this track and in this position if personally I hadn't gone through some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a common theme of people that have come on the show and just other entrepreneurs that I talk to, stepping back. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Dan Sullivan's work at all. He wrote a book called Who Not How, which
I've
would
heard
be
that one.
a great read and for you and people listening. But it's really about when you encounter challenges in your business, instead of figuring out how do I figure this out, it's who do I hire to figure this out, and getting experts in all the different areas rather than you trying to figure it out yourself. Who do I find to solve this for me?
And that's such a hard
Yeah.
thing, Kip, right? Because
Right.
like, of course, every entrepreneur wants to go and hire lots of people and build a
Yeah.
big team. And it's a very difficult place to even get to put yourself in that
Hmm.
position. That's probably
Yeah.
a whole other discussion in itself.
Right. Yeah.
It makes all the logical sense in the world, but
Yeah.
then you're you're living in the real world every day, trying to
Yeah.
like
Right.
grind it out to make your business successful.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't afford it. And
Yeah. Or it
so,
could be who within your organization to do this rather than you, the founder, trying to stay more strategic. And maybe kind of the next step, and you kind of talked about getting the right people on the bus. Maybe discuss your approach to attracting and retaining high performance leaders within the business. I mean, how do you find those people? What do you look for, and how do you keep them?
I think it goes back to um, when you talk about maximizing stakeholder value, there's a good chunk of my time that I spend on building relationships with folks and trying my best to figure out ways to help them, like, and show up for them and offer my network to them and share experiences with them in a way that is really meaningful and helpful for them. And I do that because so many people over the last decade plus, Kip, have done that for me on this
Uh-huh.
journey. And you sort of feel this responsibility to really truly pay it forward to the next person walking on the path. So to be able to do that and to like really build a network who in return now they're hopefully cheering for Cariloop, and they
Uh-huh.
when they see that we need help or I need help, like they're also quick to jump in and try to contribute or make an introduction or open their network in some way. That has served me and Cariloop incredibly well in building this team. Is just the impact that we've had on so many and the network that we've created, the following we've created. Like we're very fortunate to attract a lot of people that are not only high talent and they're high performing, but they've been down this path before with their own families. So it's personally, it's important to them that we solve this because they know what this is like. I'm willing to bet, I don't have the stat handy, but I'm willing to bet that 95% of the folks at Cariloop have, unlike what you had told me pre-show, like that you haven't had to directly go through this yet, just about everybody here has.
Uh-huh.
So they wake up every day and bring their incredible talents and passions to this mission and cause, and they're the ones propelling all of this forward. So yeah, we've been just really fortunate that I would tell you like A+ players attract A+ players,
Right.
and um, we've been so lucky to have that be the truth. And it just so happens also that they really care about this, um, which that just makes my job. It's just a lot of fun to get up every day and work with these guys and watch them go do the amazing things that they do.
Oh, that's awesome. Very good. How about like investing in people, like within your team? How do you think about, or what's your approach to investing in your people?
Yeah, I mean everybody's different. I think this is also a lesson learned for me over the last couple of years is, I don't know if you ever read, the book by Gary Chapman, The Five Love Languages, like
Oh, of
understanding people's
course.
love.
Of
Yeah, like
course. Yes.
I've taken that book and just I've applied it to just about
Oh,
everything. Like you can't peanut butter spread your way through, you know, supporting others. Like you have to really understand like what their love language is. And
yeah.
so we've tried to be as multifaceted in the way that Paraloop supports its people. We've got, like I said before, if we're going to do this for others, we've got to make sure we do this really well here. Like really incredible, very thoughtful, like benefit programs and well-being programs. We've got all the things I mentioned before with our public benefit corporation work, time off to go volunteer, like just all these things that hopefully are able to recharge our team and create the space for them. We've got a really flexible, unlimited time away program. Like, unlike many employers who put maximums on, we actually have a minimum, which is
Yes.
15 days a year. Like, you have to go away. We've got all the federal holidays. We give everybody quarterly mental health days, which are usually on Fridays. So you can have a long weekend, like off. Like, so just time to recharge your batteries. Like we've got really incredible leave programs so that when you have these life events, you can take the time you need and feel the support
Sure.
from Cariloop. So I think we're doing all the right things there. But for me personally, each of the folks that I work to support directly, they're all very different and they need
Uh-huh.
different things from me. And so it would be foolish of me to try and apply the same approach to all, 4, 5, 6 of them. Each of them they're unique in their own journeys. And in order for me to be able to pour into them as best I can, I've got to really understand, like, what is it about their particular journey, their style, their background, their home situation that I can do to be showing up for them every single day, every single week in a way that's making them feel really empowered to go do their best work. Um, so like from scheduling our one-on-ones at certain times away or blocking out times for them to go and pick up their kids every day. Or certain folks on our team I know really need their gym time.
Uh-huh.
And so helping to keep space for them to be able to go
Yes.
do that, knowing that we can chat in the evening or early morning or somewhere else, like just being thoughtful about that stuff. Like it's incredible how far that goes and what that can mean to your team.
Yeah.
So for anybody listening, that's exactly what I would advise is really get to know your people on that deep of a level so that you understand when you should and shouldn't email and Slack them, when you should and
Uh-huh.
shouldn't schedule meetings with them,
Right.
when you should and shouldn't like book a board meeting knowing that like their kid's birthday is that week and it would be really like that
Yeah.
is the level of intentionality that I think you have to have when you're really supporting your people.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about in our organization and just kind of the companies we advise that in all your relationships, whether it's work or personal, I mean, people kind of ask three questions. I mean, do you care about me? Can I trust you? And can you help me? And if you can solve those to it's strong, powerful yes. I mean, that's how you really get valued relationships personally and professionally. It's powerful. I
Yeah,
mean, you talked about the gym time. I mean, like that, I need, I personally need that. And if I was working in an organization where they didn't allow that, that would be, which seems like a goofy thing, but that would be a deal breaker for me.
I think in the flip of that too, Kip,
Oh,
is being able to model that too. Like for me, same
right.
thing. Like you look at my calendar and I've got pretty much 4 to 5:30 every day is blocked for the gym,
Uh-huh.
and
Right.
like really holding that time sacred and modeling that for your team that
Yes.
like at 3:45, I'm like I was up early, like I started my work at
Right.
7. At 3:45, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do some things to take care of me. And if there's anything that I need to get to then before I go to bed at night, like I'll get to it then and
Right.
we'll get after it the next day. But you got to model that. Like same
Uh-huh.
thing when you go on time away, like
Right.
quiet.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people will expect when they go on time away that they're supposed to be, you know,
Totally.
they need to be on. It's like, no,
Yeah.
go away.
And your point, and I think this is super important to hear because there's a lot of companies that offer the unlimited vacation time off. But what happens is your super high performers never take time off. And to do what you did, where there's a minimum, you have to do it and you force them to do it. That's so important in those unlimited time off scenarios.
It's an interesting story super fast here, like, and if our head of people ever listens to this, like they'll understand more why I've been pushing on it. But like we have been in the middle of like really building out all of our um, dashboard and paneling instrumentation for us as a management team to see all the various data points throughout the business and how we're really running. And it's tough to be able to make decisions and make changes within the business if you can't see what what your panel instrumentation is telling you. And so one of the dashboards I've been dying to have like over the last quarter is like all of our data from our HRIS system so that I can see what time away within our team looks like, so that like I can't push on people need to really go out there and take if I can't see it. So like I just got this, like our head of data analytics, our head of people just delivered to this to me here over the last couple of weeks, and like it was great to I can see it. I can see
Yes.
what's going on now. Like I can say to the team, like we're lagging behind. Like you got to go take the time. You can't show up me the best version of you if you've only taken 3 days off this year.
Right. Yeah,
It doesn't work.
for sure. How
So we
about,
still got work to
yeah,
do on
go.
this, like,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're striving to at least enforce the minimums and make sure everybody's taking that time and
Yeah.
cooling the jets and refilling their cups.
And it's always your best people that you have to force. I mean, that's a generalization, but usually it's your best people that you have to force to do it because they're just wired to go, 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 and they love what they're doing. But recharging, it's so powerful and they're so much more effective.
our head of sales made a comment yesterday on a monthly call of ours that she just took time off to go to Hilton Head, and this was the first
Oh,
time in a long
beautiful.
time that she felt like she could really unplug. And I know for sure there was some text messages with her going back and forth, but she did a great job of, like, I mean, publicly it looked like she was gone, and
Yeah.
she'd sent some pictures of what she was doing with her family. Like, just I love that. I love that. That's what this is supposed to be all about. So yeah, always work to be done on this, but I do think that we've structured it in a way that it's right. It's right.
Yeah. How about as you're looking out and you say you're mostly focused on looking forward, what trends, opportunities do you see in the market for your business that you're most excited about or just really fired up about?
I actually I'd answer the question, Kip, with a question back to you, just as
Mhm.
far as even what you're seeing with the employers you're working with and some of the candidates that you're chatting with. I mean, it's an interesting market out there right now in terms of hiring and talent and just sort of where the labor force is going at the moment. I'm curious, just like kind of what's the temperature that you have, like as you're chatting with clients and sort of evaluating their talent needs? Are you feeling like they're still guns a-blazing, like looking to bring tons of people in, or can you feel them sort of tapping the brakes a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I would say our niche is maybe different because we're doing mostly C-level executive leadership across all industries all around the country, all shapes and sizes from startups to large organizations. But it's typically C-level or leadership roles. So for those types of roles, companies always need those people. So our business tends to stay pretty steady. And like as far as scaling our business, it's building deeper relationships with clients and new clients, and then getting in with private equity groups and venture capital groups and family offices and groups that have portfolios of companies, so we can do a lot of C-level work for multiple businesses. Because if we do a good job and place a CEO or CFO, I mean, they should be there for the long term, which they are. So our business tends to stay pretty steady because we're not doing mass hirings and mass people leaving. So it's maybe not totally reflective of the job market. So, but our business is strong. There's lots of demand. Um, but people, again, these are generalizations. They want flexibility. Some people love to be in the office. Some people love to be remote, hybrid. I mean, in general, people across, up and down the board, they just want the flexibility to work when and how they want and how they can be most effective. Typically C-level leaders want to physically be there and with their teams and because they feel like they make the most impact. But we have a lot of like tech companies and SaaS companies that are 100% remote, and they've made that work really well. Our company is 100% remote, and it works extraordinarily well. And we've built great culture and core values. So it's different across industries, but as a general proposition, people just want flexibility, and they like the results only types of environments. As long as I'm, hitting my goals, exceeding my goals, driving results, they like the freedom to do that. And as you said, A players hire A players, B people usually hire C people. So the A people, they want a challenge too. I mean, they might love what they're doing, they might be super successful at it, but they want new opportunities, new challenges. They want to be pushed. They don't want to be status quo. So a lot of times that's why, people make different moves, even though they're really happy, they're loyal to their organization, but they don't, again, the great A players, they don't feel like they're being challenged anymore, or they're not learning and growing. And the really great people just crave growth and expansion and being pushed beyond their capabilities. And so if you can offer that within your organization as people are coming up the ranks to grow and stretch them. But as you said, you got to understand different people. They have different needs and wants and different times in life. I mean, maybe they're dealing with family or parents or a sibling or a child. So that's not a good season for whatever that is. But once that's settled and they're ready for that challenge. So it probably goes back to just having good communication with your team and asking them, well, what do you want? How can we serve you?
I think there's two things you mentioned though that are emblematic of kind of what we're seeing. And there's a little bit of this rotation going on. And so something you said early on there is that, yeah, even though you guys might be focused on sort of the C level, the management level, the senior leadership level and above, you probably, if you really kind of thought deep into your client base, you would detect this rotation that's taking place within some of the executive folks that were there pre-pandemic and throughout the pandemic, and some of the changes that through the last 24 months, as we've had macro issues with inflation and interest rates, and just some of the new business challenges that are being thrown at leaders and executive teams. There's executives that are versed in this, and they've made the right bets and right calls, and they've guided their company through, and they've shepherded it to the safety. And there's others that have not.
Mm-hmm.
And that skill set, though, was very different than the skill set of navigating through a global pandemic,
Right.
and where you had zero inflation, zero interest rates, money is cheap. It is a totally different set of circumstances by which you make bets and form strategy.
Uh-huh.
So, like, even though you might not be dealing with sort of the mass hiring and mass layoffs, I'm willing to bet you're probably seeing that rotation a bit in terms of what employers are telling you, and also what your candidates that you're meeting with are telling you as far as where they just came from
Uh-huh.
and what they were dealing with and why they're not there anymore or
Yeah.
leaving. Like, so if you were to let this sort of permeate through, we're seeing this. You're asking sort
Yeah.
of what we see up ahead.
Yeah.
Like, the workforce dynamics are changing, like, big time. And there's a number of factors, at play here. It's not just some of the ones I've mentioned. There's just a lot of other societal factors at play here,
Mm-hmm.
generational factors at play here.
Hmm.
So what I would tell you is, as we look forward, and we're just focusing on employers for this conversation,
Sure.
like, caregiving is a universal issue. It's not just
Right.
an employer issue, it's a human issue.
Uh-huh.
But just focusing on employers for this question, like, these employers, they're having to grapple with the next 5 to 10 years of what the composition of their workforce is even going to look and feel like. Are they all going to be in an office? Are they not? Are they going to be in the same 100,000 square foot office they've been in, or are they going to divide it up into 10 smaller regional hubs with 2,000 square feet each that they
Uh-huh.
don't go into like, all these just workforce planning and execution challenges and issues that they're facing. And what I would tell you is that, like, at the center of all of that, you have to be laser focused on not just attracting the A talent and, like, creating this growth environment that attracts people to it. Like I preached a bit before, like, you've got to
Uh-huh.
be thoughtful about what those folks are going through at home and what's happening in their lives, and how you can best solve for some of the not just physical issues that they may be dealing with, like diabetes or digestive issues or sleep issues, but family issues, financial well-being issues, mental and emotional issues, like some of these total well-being types of challenges that are going on. Those are the employers that are going to not only attract, like, the A plus talent, but they're going to keep the A plus talent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, them thinking this way and shifting this way. 10 years from now, like, the way that we've done it in the last 10 years, and again, you sort of have to push the pandemic to the side, like,
Uh-huh.
the way it's felt for you and I, like, in this last 10, this is not how it's going to continue to feel.
Right.
10 and 20 years from now, it's going to continue to evolve. We haven't even talked about AI and all
I
this
know.
either, like, how that's going to change everything. So, like, we're being very mindful of this. And again, what I would tell you is, people caring for people, this is a universal problem.
Mm.
So for us, it's also about not just thinking about the employer and how we reach caregivers and families through the employer, but other verticals as well that are really interesting points of entry for a caregiver to realize they're on this journey and get help. Where can we meet them, where we can activate that and make sure that, like I said before, they immediately feel like they've got support and they don't have to do this by themselves. So couldn't be more excited and bullish about, like, where the company's headed and all the people we're going to
Yeah.
get to help along the way.
That's exciting. I mean, as you said, caregiving is universal. I mean, it's from people just living, in multi-generational communities and households to everything across the board. I mean, it is humanity. It's real. How
Going
about
on every day.
as we're kind of getting to close here, advice to young entrepreneurs, people that like looking back 12 years ago when you launched this business, any advice, things you've learned along the way that you would give to young entrepreneurs now? Maybe they're coming out of college to start their first business, or they're employed somewhere, they're thinking about launching their first business, or they have it going. As you look forward, any advice you'd share with aspiring entrepreneurs, whatever their age, I guess?
I think there's this, it goes back a little bit earlier, Kip, to what I said. There's this feeling, and even this facade that I think founders and entrepreneurs have to put on. Like, you need to be confident and optimistic and bullish, like I just was on my soapbox for the last couple of minutes. Like, right, you have to be that way all the time. But that can internally be challenging to sort of keep at that level, like 24/7, 365.
Uh-huh.
And I think the first bit of advice I would offer is to realize that you're not bulletproof, and like, that you need to take care of you and recognize the marathon that you're running. Don't burn yourself out. Like, take breaks. My co-founder would always tell me, like, take water breaks. You got to go grab some water, grab some Gatorade. You can't just keep burning. You got to every so often just take a minute. So for founders and entrepreneurs to remind themselves of that, like, you can't be glued to your laptop and your iPhone 24 hours a day. Like, you've got to still find some balance and harmony in your life with your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, everything we've been talking about. Like, it applies to entrepreneurs as well, not just big corporations.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say, just from personal experience, and it goes back to what I shared about just learning the lessons I learned about scaling, and really truly, the more we wanted to do, that meant the less that I had to work at it. I would be advising entrepreneurs and founders to constantly be evaluating kind of where they view their current ceiling, and recognize that as soon as you feel comfortable, like you're getting into a rhythm, recognize that's actually the beginning of you feeling like you're coming up against the ceiling. And in order for you to burst through it and get to the next place, you've got to really have great people around you that can help you see your blind spots and help push you through that ceiling to the next place. If you're comfortable there and that's where you want to be, like, that's fine. But if you aspire to really go to the next, it starts with you. Like, no one else is
Mm-hmm.
going to do it for you. You got to realize that you're going to get stuck. At some point, you're going to get too comfortable, and that's where things can start to slow down and potentially even get away from you if you take your foot off the gas pedal. So I've
Yeah.
had great people around me to coach me, to push me, to challenge me. And yeah, recognizing that those ceilings are there. And as soon as I'm feeling comfortable and good, it's time to push myself again.
Uh-huh.
Just for founders and entrepreneurs to remind themselves of that along the way, and don't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, really, really important.
Yeah, that's great advice. How about, okay, last question. Success for you personally, what is your personal definition of success?
I've always said my why, and the wording, it varies depending on who I'm talking to and how I say it, but my why has always been to work as hard as I possibly can to help as many people as I possibly can. Like, that's always been the why statement. Now,
Mm.
you double click into that, what does success look like if we're talking about Cariloop for a second? There's 125 million folks today, Kip, that are going into the office and going through the exact things that you and I have been talking about for the last
Uh-huh.
45 minutes.
Wow.
Um, we've gotten to the first chunk of those, which is great. It's a start, but we got a lot of work to do. So, I think I don't necessarily put an exact number on that, but we got to get to more of them. So I'm thinking about that every day, and that's just
Uh-huh.
the United States. This is a global issue. Like, this is
Sure.
actually worse in other parts of the world, where places like Japan or even Canada, to the north, not far from where you're sitting, like,
Uh-huh.
they have this problem even worse. Like, there's less people to take care of those that are aging, and just the way the population dynamics and demographics have been over the course of time, like, they're going to have problems. So yeah, success for me is feeling like we've gotten to as many of those people as we possibly can and changed the way that hopefully they experience this. And one more maybe philosophical hope and vision for the future would be that in doing all of those things, we're able to prove to communities, to corporations, to governments that family caregivers are a critical part of the healthcare journey.
Mm.
And they need the proper support, not just from private enterprises like Cariloop, but from public enterprises like the US government, the Canadian government, the Japanese government. Like this needs to become more built into the fabric of our society, that we're
Mhm.
supporting caregivers and parents versus sort of leaving them to their laurels to figure this out.
Yeah.
Uh, the macroeconomic damage that comes from it, like all the research has been done, it's there. But it's up to us to prove that this belongs and create a pivot within the system that it's not just about here in the US, patients, providers, and payers anymore. Like you've also got parents and caregivers in that, that mix and that ecosystem as well. So hoping that over the course of time we can change that, and we've got work to do to really lobby and make sure that our government leaders hear us on this issue over the next decade. So that's success. And if I can have a lot of fun along the way and stay
Yeah.
healthy and
Yeah.
just get to do some of the things I love every day, like that sounds good to me.
That's awesome. Well, good. Well, I think you've created some serious momentum with Cariloop on that mission and towards that success. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being a guest on the show. I think you've added huge value to our audience, and I'm sure just about everybody can relate, whether it's in their personal lives or someone they know really close who's gone through this. So thank you for everything. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and insights. We really appreciate you, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, Kip. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, you bet. Thanks.